All right. On today's, I guess it's an all sports podcast. I have my friend Austin on the line, and we'll start off really quickly by doing something local, something close to both Austin and my heart, and that's Masahiro Tanaka getting hit with a comebacker from Giancarlo Stanton over the weekend. Last thing that I saw from anything Yankee related, he was released from the hospital the same day that he went in. He was symptom free and feeling okay, which, I mean, that's the best case scenario if you're a Yankee fan or if you're Tanaka or anybody associated with the Yankees organization. That's what you want. And it was a scary thing. Gleyber Torres came out about an hour after the video surfaced on Twitter and said, "Can you please stop sharing the video? The team doesn't want it to happen. We feel terrible." Um, I can only imagine how Stanton feels being on the other end of this and getting hit with a 95-mile-per-hour fastball to his face in 2014 that made him miss significant time, and he probably would have won the MVP that year if he didn't get hit in the face. But Austin, very quickly, what are your thoughts on the situation, and where do you think baseball and the Yankees will go from here?
Well, I guess first and foremost, my initial reaction was I'm glad he's okay. It says that he was down for 5 minutes after he got hit. I mean, any baseball coming off the bat can do serious damage, but knowing that behind that bat was Giancarlo Stanton, that's just really scary. So we're just glad that Tanaka's okay and that he's out of the hospital. Hopefully, it's nothing lingering. Hopefully, it's something that he can get cleared relatively quickly. But this day and age with head injuries, you can't be too careful. So if the Yankees have to be prepared to be without their ace for their
One
second
of their
ace, one of
aces.
their aces now, for a period of time, and they just gonna have to roll with the punches. I mean, that's what this whole season is about: rolling with the punches.
He did have a mild concussion. It was a 112 mile per hour comebacker that hit him in the head, and I've seen people call for L screens and you know some sort of head protection on their cap, which Major League Baseball has tried in the past. I'm still a believer in moving the mound back maybe a foot or two just to give the pitcher a will that like knock down a velocity? Absolutely, but it will give the pitcher the ability to have at least a second or a half a second more reaction time, which could potentially save a couple of lives. I still think that the hard hats will at some point come into effect because you can't have pitchers with no head protection having 110 plus mile per hour baseballs whizzing past their heads. So something will come out of this in
Yeah,
terms of pitcher safety.
like the home plate collision, the comebacker is just one of the brutal parts of baseball that we've become used to. But as we move on, I mean, they've adjusted the home plate collision rule, and if there's something they can do to amend or lessen the amount of comebackers that we see in a season, they have to take that next step.
Let's quickly completely change our course of action here and let's talk some football. About an hour ago, as we're recording this on Monday, Patrick Mahomes has become the richest man in football. $400 million extension with the Kansas City Chiefs to keep him in Kansas City through 2031. The only thing that I can think about is good for Mahomes, good for the Chiefs. Some of their players, some of their skill guys are not going to be re-signed because of this deal because you just don't have enough that much money to keep everybody. But Mahomes is one of those guys that you have to keep, and you do everything possible to do that. The other thing is who's the next guy up because whoever the next guy up is going to get $410 million because that's just how the QB market works. Um, Austin, how do you think this affects Kansas City's plans going forward? And if you had to guess, who do you think that next quarterback will be?
Wow. Well, I'll say this much: kudos to the Chiefs front office for managing to pull this off. Adam Schefter put on Twitter, not only are they bringing back Patrick Mahomes until 2031, but this season they're also bringing back 20 of their 22 starters from that Super Bowl winning team. So it's obvious that the Chiefs aren't just happy with the one; they're going for a dynasty here. And I gotta say, Patrick Mahomes really looks like the guy who can make a dynasty happen in that city. I've never seen a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. I don't think anybody else has. As far as which quarterback is next, man, in my heart of hearts, I wish I could say Daniel Jones. I would love to say Daniel Jones is next. He's the next guy. The truth is, I don't know. Quarterback is a fleeting position. I will say that if we see another year out of Lamar Jackson, like what we just saw, I don't see why he can't be the next big thing. The two-headed monster in the AFC of Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Lamar Jackson is Michael Vick with an arm.
Yeah, I mean, well, Vic had an arm, but he didn't like to use it that much. Jackson actually can sit behind the pocket or extend the pocket and rifle him just as well as Mahomes can. But I mean, there are some throws, and the throw that comes to mind is the one that ultimately led to the game-winning touchdown for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, that play to Tyreek Hill. One thing that is interesting though, Mahomes is 24 years old. He will be 25 in September. This deal puts him through his age 34 season.
He'll be 37 when it's up.
It's 10 years, isn't it?
12 years because he has 2 years remaining on his
Oh,
on his
so this
rookie
is
deal.
all right. So yeah, he'll be 37 when this. So this is his last contract. This is his big and his only contract. He will probably retire a Chief when it's all said and done. I mean, maybe he signs a 1-year deal somewhere else and plays with, I don't know, the Titans for a season, but presumably this is where he's going to be for the rest of his career. And yeah, the Chiefs want to make something out of this, and they want to be the next New England with Mahomes and Andy Reid. And I mean, strike while the iron's hot. You have majority of the Super Bowl winning team coming back. The one thing that might hurt this team is Chris Jones. They're one of their star defensive tackles. Will hold out until he gets a new deal. Now, they could franchise tag him, which I think they have about a week to figure out whether they want to franchise tag him or not. But Jones did say he would go to the lengths of a Le'Veon Bell season-long holdout to get a new deal, and I don't think that's wise, to be completely honest. If I was him, I would play the season out, assuming that they do have a season and everything. You could be healthy and not possibly contract the COVID virus, but I'd play the season out, possibly win another Super Bowl, and then go test free agency. I'm not giving up a ring if I'm one of these guys on the Chiefs. Let's take a quick break. We'll hear from Feed Hudson Valley, and we'll be right back. Feed Hudson Valley is a regional food rescue and harvesting network in the Hudson Valley operating through Dutchess, Orange, Ulster, Columbia, Greene, Putnam, and Sullivan counties. It links donors of prepared but unserved food and fresh produce with nonprofits and food assistant programs through an app-assisted network of food donors, volunteers, and feeding agencies. Feed Hudson Valley facilitates the harvesting, processing, and distribution of locally grown or produced agricultural products, self-stable food donations, and prepared nutritious foods. The app used is called Chow Match, and it is easy for volunteers to download and use. Among the donors are restaurants, farms, food makers, stores, hospitals, and universities. The food assistant programs include food pantries, soup kitchens, and shelters. Volunteers are matched through the Chow Match app when a donation is available. They can indicate that they are available to make a run, and then pick it up for a donor and deliver it to the agency. The Feed Hudson Valley Network currently includes over 300 volunteers, 130 donors, and 95 receiving agencies. Last year, on average, Feed Hudson Valley rescued and redirected over 12,000 pounds of food each month. Feed Hudson Valley could use more donors and volunteers. To learn more and sign up, visit feedhv.org. Again, that's feedhv.org. One more time, spelled out, feedhv.org. Now back to the podcast. All right. So in the first block, we talked a little bit about what happened with Masahiro Tanaka over the weekend and touched on the Pat Mahomes record-breaking deal. Congratulations to that man. He now has generational wealth that his great-grandkids won't have to do anything because he has $400 million by the end of 2031.
Plus endorsements.
Yeah, plus the Nike deals and Gatorade and whatever else he decided to latch on to. But even though I don't think he's a Nike athlete, but whatever. Moving to something of a serious topic, name changes in sports. The Cleveland Indians and Washington Redskins over the weekend were under some scrutiny and both reacted to say, we will review our team names, basically saying, at some point in the near future, we will change our names. Both Ron Rivera and Terry Francona, the manager and head coach of each respective teams, came out and basically said it's time for that to happen and for the process to begin to change the name of the organization. And Ron Rivera is actually involved with the changing of the name for the Redskins. So out of all the names, quickly, I like for Cleveland, just to go back to the Spiders, there's a Foolish Baseball video on YouTube. If you don't know who Foolish Baseball is, go search him up on YouTube. His videos are fantastic. But he did a video on the worst team in baseball, and it was the Cleveland Spiders. So why not just bring that name back? And I actually like the Washington Arlingtons for Washington. Really quickly, let me bring up the names that are put out that you can bet on. This is off of OddsShark. And the names are the Presidents, Generals, Lincolns, Americans, Kings, Memorials, Capitals.
Americans is so bad. Americans is like one of the worst names.
I don't know why Capitals is on there. They already have a hockey team named that, so they would never do two teams in the same.
The Washington Americans. Ugh.
The Veterans, the Jeffersons, the Roosevelts, the Monuments, or the Arlingtons. I really like the name of the Washington Arlingtons.
Those all sound so problematic to me.
What's wrong with the Arlingtons?
The Arlingtons, I don't know what that means, but I like the Jeffersons. I mean, like, and the Washingtons. I mean, like any founding father, they all owned people. That's not better. What? My favorite name isn't on that list. It sounds like.
What's yours?
Washington Red Tails. I don't know if you saw. I saw it on Twitter. I saw it all over the place. Facebook, online. People were making fake graphics and stuff. Red Tails were the names of the fighter jets that the Tuskegee Airmen flew in the Second World War. Tuskegee Airmen, notoriously the first all African American Air Force group, all black soldiers. And honestly, man, it looks amazing. The Red Tails is a sick name, and the logo is awesome. It's the same Redskins colors, but instead of a Native American, it's a fighter jet. And I think that looks so cool.
I just looked at it, and I could get behind this.
I mean, dude, those helmets with those colors and like a fighter jet on the side, that'd be sick. That'd be awesome.
Even their alternate logo, where it's the W with the three lines and the star above the W in the middle, I like that too. I mean, I like that, the Washington Red Tails. And I mean, it puts sort of like you could spin it in a way publicly from a media standpoint, from a public relations standpoint, to say we're backing the BLM movement and we're standing with are black players on our current roster and black players around the league.
And
And
also, yeah, it's a great publicity move, but I mean, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I look at this and it's almost embarrassing how long overdue this is. I'm amazed that we got into 2020 without changing the Redskins name because I feel like every other year there would be a story as to why the Redskins name was offensive. The Daily Show famously did a piece on it, I think in 2015 or 2016, and it got a lot of traction. It happens every other year, every couple of years, and nothing came of it. It took all of this, and even still, Snyder's dragging his feet. But thankfully, finally, we're gonna get better as people and as fans, and get a respectable team in Washington.
Peter Rosenberg of the K Show put out something in 2013, I think on Hot 97, which is the other radio station that he works for, claiming or going off on a rant about how the Bullets got changed to the Wizards because people in DC didn't want a violent a violent name associated with their city, and they've kept the Redskins for years and years and years. So they don't want something that is could possibly convey violence, but they're okay with a vehemently racist term for Native Americans as a nickname for their team, which I don't understand it either. I would love to. I would love to sit in a room with Daniel Snyder and pick his brain about why it's taken so long for him to change the name.
What brain?
Well, that I mean that's a different story. It might just be all air up there, or helium or whatever. But I would like to sit down and have a conversation about it and just understand why it's taken him so long uh, to change it. And I mean, the argument from him for years was that there wasn't enough people that were offended by it for him to consider it. And then the one Native American tribe that was okay with the name, he just jumped on their backs and was like, "See, some Native Americans are okay with this." So, I mean, this is long overdue. I hope it changes. And the Indians, I agree. There was a little bit of traction news-wise, I think 2 years ago, with the Indians getting rid of the chief. I think it's Wahoo.
Chief Wahoo, yeah.
They got rid of him as the mascot of the Indians. And I mean, if you're going to do that, they should have just changed the name back then. But I like the Spiders. I really do. It has history in the city. It was the team's name at one point. Um, so I don't understand why they couldn't go back to the Spiders and change it that way. Plus, some of the logos for the Cleveland Spiders are ridiculous. I love them.
I have to look them up. I mean, I don't know. I don't know as much about the history of Cleveland to like offer a new name for the team, but just really quick here. Again, it goes back to for years. I'm embarrassed in myself because, dude, I used to want a Chief Wahoo hat when I was a kid. I used to say, man,
it looked
the
cool.
Cleveland Indians are sick, and like yeah, I can blame the culture we grew up in and all this stuff, but it also comes back to me as a person and us as fans. We didn't see the problem, and that's bad and that's embarrassing, and we have to own up to that. But like I said last week on the pod, the good thing about this time in our country, the silver lining here, is that we are getting educated, an education that we should have had a long time ago and been more aware of, but we're getting one now, and we can finally get better.
I agree with you. And I mean, yeah, when I was a kid, it looked cool. I wanted a Chief Wahoo hat. But you're right. You're 100% right. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with the ending of the show. All right, and we're back. Quick update from the beginning of the pod on the Patrick Mahomes contract front. It is actually a 10-year, $450 million contract, which is the richest contract in sports. It's the biggest contract in NFL history. There is an injury guarantee of 140 million bucks. And yeah, he's going to be a Chief for life. Good for him. And Austin, you hit it right on the head at the beginning. It will go into effect in 2 years. So in 2 years, Patrick Mahomes will be making $45 million per year until the end of his NFL career. So good on him. But staying in the NFL, we will switch gears to the preseason and the shortened preseason at that. The NFL announced last week that that they will not be playing weeks 1 and 3 in the preseason due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the only thing that I can think of is this is the first step in the NFL realizing that they are running out of time with trying to figure out a solution to how they're going to play games in 2020 and playing games alongside the pandemic. Earlier today, I was thinking about a possible solution for an NFL season. I know that they have already released the schedule for 2020, but that doesn't mean you can't change it. There's nothing set in stone that says you can't change it. So I think what they might do is possibly scrap the preseason entirely. And then what I would do if I was Goodell would be to follow the parameters that Major League Baseball has put in place with the way that they're going to play their 60 game season with playing your corresponding division in either league. That way you can just keep it regional. So if you're in the AFC East, you play the AFC East and the NFC East twice a year, and so on and so forth. And that just keeps travel to a minimum. I know if you're in the AFC East or if you're in the Eastern divisions, you would have to go down to Florida and Texas to play Dallas and Miami. But I mean, there's going to be some hot spots that Major League Baseball has to go into as well, and testing and all that will have to be sorted out somehow. And hopefully, that will be one of the solutions to try to limit the exposure. Austin, what do you think of that idea of keeping the NFL regional and having the Jets and Giants play twice a year where they don't have to go anywhere?
Well, I think it's a good idea. I do. I think it makes sense. Honestly, though, and at the risk of sounding naive, I'm gonna hold out hope for the NFL. I'm gonna say that um, this is precautionary. I'm gonna say that this is just them hedging their bets. We know there will be no fans this year. I feel like that alone is a lot of risk taken out of it. And among the players, they can take cues from the NBA, and not even baseball, but the NBA. I feel like the NBA is doing it best.
You like the bubble idea better?
I do like the bubble idea.
Even with the MLS's bubble being burst by the Dallas team already contracting, I think it's 9, as there's a ginormous thunderclap in the background. That scared the hell out of me. But
yeah, it's not even so much the bubble idea. It's more of just the way they're going about testing and the way they're going about separating players. I just feel like the NBA is showing the least hesitation in terms of starting up their league again. When someone gets the virus, they just, and if it's the right thing or the wrong thing, I don't know. It's just like the NBA says, all right, well, then you won't be coming to Orlando, but we'll get someone to replace you.
I like that idea. I do. And the whole, what the MLS is doing is just Dallas is, the whole team, I think, is out of the is out of the running for the season or playoffs or whatever the case may be with their season, and they're quarantining in their hotel. Now, that does limit the hotels that the NBA can use in Florida, because I know that the MLS is also in Orlando. So one of the hotels is just out of commission for 2 weeks. So that's the issue with the bubble, is having that type of well, what happens if somebody else leaves and brings it back, and then we have 9 people that just can't leave anywhere? Now, what I would do if I was the NFL is I'd put in a tight curfew. And I think that's one thing that all the sports are going to have to do is you're going to have a curfew. You're going to have some sort of policing by the league and by teams to keep an eye on players. And if they go outside the bubble, they get fined massively. I think a sports sort of compensated fine that, like what Texas is doing with if you go out in public and you don't wear a mask, you get fined $250. Well, whatever the relation to $250 to a Major League Baseball player or NBA basketball player or NFL football player is, if that's like 45 grand, then that's what it is. I would put in something where if you possibly leave, you are going to get hit in the wallet. And I think that's the only way that players will listen, honestly, is if they have to pay for
Right,
it.
and it's also just and the NFL, and that's going to be hard for the NFL because the NFL is just
They're going to play.
they're
No
going
matter
to
what,
play,
they're going to
but the
play
NFL is
because they're
just
the NFL.
riddled with guys that don't like to follow rules.
Yeah,
The NFL is riddled with discipline cases, which so I feel like the curfew is just going to be harder. But I think that speaks more to Goodell's inability to run a league. But that's a different issue.
I mean,
Um,
no one's going to want to pay money. No, if it's, let's just say 45,000, no one's going to want to pay that. No matter if your contract is 20 million a year or you're making the bare minimum, nobody's going to want to pay that. And if you're the NFL, I would say you're giving up a game check if you go to Arby's at 2 a.m. and possibly risk putting yourself in danger and multiple of your teammates and your coaches.
right. I do think though. Just going back to the preseason thing really quick. There are some positives there. For years, every year, I hear people say, "Ah, the preseason sucks. I hate the preseason." I hate
Everybody
the preseason
does.
also. So I don't really mind 2 less games. It means that less guys are going to get hurt. It could also mean that more guys are going to make the team.
Right. Forward, but Austin, I think that's a great place to end. And before we get out of here, tell the people where they can find you and all that good stuff.
We're always happy to be on the grind hour. Always a good time. Thanks for having me. And you can find me on Twitter at AirSanti, AIR_Santi. And you can find me on Instagram, which is at your boy Santi, YA_boy_Santi.
On this side of the coin, not the fake J Leo, jdatasports.blogspot.com, and of course this podcast. If you've reached the end by now, you know the deal. If you've been here for a while, but if you don't, please like, subscribe, share with anybody who you seem fit. Hit both of us up on Twitter, and it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Peace out.